Las Vegas, 1974. Sarah, born blind, sits front row as everyone screams. Elvis suddenly stops mid-song, pulls her on stage, and in 8 minutes shows 2,000 people what love actually looks like. The girl who saved for 2 years. Sarah Mitchell was 16 and had never seen anything. Born 3 months premature in 1958, the oxygen in her incubator had been set wrong, destroying her vision permanently. But Sarah could hear everything. Elvis's voice had been her window to the world since childhood. Her mother Patricia played his records constantly. Blue Suede Shoes, Love Me Tender, Can't Help Falling in Love. Sarah didn't need to see Elvis to love him. At 14, Sarah asked, "Mama, I want to go to an Elvis concert, just once." Patricia was a nurse who barely made rent. Elvis tickets in Vegas were expensive, but when she looked at her blind daughter asking for one dream, she made a decision. For 2 years, Patricia worked double shifts. She saved every extra dollar. No new clothes, no dinners out, just savings, slowly building toward 2 front-row tickets. August 1974, she finally had enough. "Sarah, pack your bags. We're going to see Elvis." Sarah's face lit up brighter than any light she'd never seen. "Really? Front row?" "Front row. You'll be close enough to hear every breath he takes." The journey to Las Vegas. The flight from their small town in Ohio to Las Vegas was Sarah's first time on a plane. Patricia described everything. The sound of the engines, the feeling of takeoff, the clouds they were flying through. "What do clouds look like, Mama?" Sarah asked. "Like cotton candy," Patricia said. "Soft and white and floating." Sarah smiled. She'd touched cotton candy at a fair once. Now she could imagine clouds. When they arrived in Las Vegas, the sounds overwhelmed Sarah. Slot machines dinging, people shouting, music playing from every direction. Patricia held Sarah's hand tightly as they navigated through the casino to their hotel. "This place is loud," Sarah said. "That's Vegas, baby. Everything here is loud and bright and over the top. But tomorrow night, the only sound that will matter is Elvis's voice." That night, Sarah barely slept. She kept thinking about the next day. In less than 24 hours, she'd be in the same room as Elvis Presley, hearing him sing live. It felt like a dream. The next morning, Patricia helped Sarah pick out her outfit, a blue dress that Patricia said brought out the blue in Sarah's eyes, even though Sarah couldn't see them herself. "You look beautiful," Patricia said, fighting back tears. "I don't care how I look, Mama. I just want to hear him sing." "I know, baby, but you look beautiful anyway." The night that changed everything, the International Hotel showroom was packed with 2,000 screaming fans on August 17, 1974. Sarah sat in the front row, hands folded in her lap, perfectly still. Everyone around her jumped and reached for Elvis, but Sarah just sat there, her face turned toward the stage she couldn't see. Patricia held Sarah's hand and described everything. "The lights are dimming, the band is walking out, people are standing up, there's a man with a guitar, another with drums, the whole stage is glowing with lights." Then the announcer boomed, "Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis Presley." The crowd erupted. Sarah jumped at the volume, her heart pounding. Then she heard it, the voice she'd waited 16 years to hear live. Elvis's voice singing C.C. Rider filled the room, not through scratchy records, not through tinny speakers. Live, powerful, real. Tears streamed down Sarah's face. She was smiling and crying at the same time. Patricia whispered, "He's wearing a white jumpsuit covered in jewels. He's moving across the stage. His smile is so big. Sarah, he's everything you imagined and more." Elvis performed his usual high-energy opening, moving across the stage, hip swivels, karate moves, the crowd going wild. But 20 minutes into the show during Burning Love, something caught Elvis's attention. Elvis notices something, but why did he stop? In the front row, directly in his line of sight, a teenage girl sat perfectly still. Everyone around her was screaming, reaching, jumping. But this girl just sat there, tears running down her face, not moving. Elvis kept singing, but his eyes stayed on her. Something was different, the way she was sitting, the way her eyes didn't track his movement across the stage, the way her face turned toward his voice rather than his body. Then Elvis realized something. She was blind. Elvis stopped singing mid-verse. The band, confused, gradually stopped playing. The audience began to quiet down, wondering what was happening. The moment everything stopped. Elvis walked to the edge of the stage and knelt down, right in front of Sarah. "Honey," Elvis said gently into the microphone, "you in the front row, in the blue dress. What's your name?" Sarah froze. Was Elvis talking to her? Patricia squeezed her hand. "He's talking to you, baby." Sarah, she said quietly. Sarah, that's a beautiful name. How old are you, Sarah? 16. Sarah, can you see me? The showroom went completely silent. 2,000 people held their breath. No, sir, Sarah said, her voice shaking. I'm blind. I've been blind since I was born. Elvis was quiet for a moment. Then he said, but you came to my show anyway. Yes, sir. I love your music. I've loved it my whole life. My mama saved for 2 years to bring me here. I just wanted to hear you sing in person. Elvis looked at Patricia, whose face was wet with tears. He saw the nurse's uniform she was still wearing because she'd come straight from a double shift to catch their flight. He saw the love in her eyes as she looked at her. Daughter. He saw 2 years of sacrifice sitting in those front row seats. Before bringing her on stage, Elvis says one sentence that changes everything. Elvis looked back at Sarah. Sarah, would you come up here on stage with me? Sarah's face showed panic. On stage? I don't know if I can. I can't see where to go. Elvis did something he rarely did. He jumped off the stage, walked directly to Sarah's seat, and took her hand gently. I've got you. I won't let you fall. Trust me. Those 2 words. Trust me. That's all Sarah needed. Sarah stood, trembling. Elvis guided her carefully to the stage stairs, then up onto the stage. The audience watched in complete silence. Many were already crying. Elvis positioned Sarah at center stage beside the microphone. Sarah, I want to do something for you. You can't see me or this stage or this audience, but I'm going to describe everything, and then I'm going to sing just for you. Is that okay? Sarah nodded. Too overwhelmed to speak to Elvis becomes her eyes. What happened next would be talked about for decades. Elvis Presley spent the next 8 minutes describing his world to a blind girl. Okay, Sarah, here's what you need to know. You're standing center stage at the International Hotel in Las Vegas. Behind you is my band. Drums, guitars, bass, piano. Some of the best musicians in the world, and they're all here to make music with me. The drummer's name is Ronnie Tutt. He's been with me for years. When he hits those drums, you can feel it in your chest like a heartbeat. The guitarist is James Burton. His fingers move so fast on the strings it looks like magic. They're good men, talented men, and they're watching you right now with smiles on their faces because they think you're brave. In front of you, about 10 feet away, are 2,000 people sitting in seats. They're all looking at you right now. And Sarah, they're not looking at you with pity or sadness. They're looking at you with love because you're brave. You came here even though you can't see. That takes courage, real courage. This stage has lights, bright white lights that shine down on us from above. If you could see them, they'd almost be too bright to look at. But they make everything glow. They make the stage feel like its own world, separate from everything else. When I'm under these lights, I feel like I'm in a different universe, a universe where only music matters. I'm wearing a white jumpsuit with jewels on it, hundreds of little jewels sewn into the fabric. When the lights hit the jewels, they sparkle like stars in the night sky. My mama would have loved this jumpsuit. She loved anything that sparkled. My belt is gold and weighs about 8 pounds. It's heavy, but I wear it because it looks good. Sometimes looking good means being uncomfortable, but that's show business. I've got rings on my fingers, big, chunky rings. I like jewelry, like things that shine and catch the light. Maybe that's silly, but it makes me happy. Elvis paused. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. Now, Sarah, I'm going to take your hand and put it on my face, so you can see me the way you see, through touch. Is that okay? Sarah nodded. Elvis guided her hand to his face. Sarah's fingers gently traced his features, his forehead, his eyebrows, his nose, his cheekbones, his famous smile. She took her time, creating a mental image through touch. Elvis stood perfectly still, letting her explore. You have a nice face, Sarah said softly. The audience laughed gently, lovingly. Elvis smiled. Thank you, Sarah. That's the nicest compliment I've gotten in years. Elvis continued. Sarah, when I perform, I move around a lot. I can't stand still. The music makes me want to move. My whole body responds to the rhythm. I do this thing with my hips where I swing them back and forth. People call it scandalous, but really, I'm just feeling the music. I'm letting it move through me. I also do karate moves sometimes. I've studied martial arts for years. It's a discipline that's helped me in so many ways. And when the music gets energetic, I do kicks and chops. It probably looks ridiculous, but it feels right. It feels like the music is a force I'm battling with, dancing with, celebrating with. When I sing the slower songs, I get real still. I close my eyes, kind of like you do all the time, and I just feel the words. I let the emotion take over. That's when the music is most real. That's when I forget about the lights and the audience and the costume. That's when it's just me and the song and the feeling. The song just for her. Elvis gestured to the band. Guys, let's do How Great Thou Art. The band started playing the gospel classic, one of Elvis's most powerful songs. But this time, he sang it differently, softer, more intimate, like a prayer. Elvis sang directly to Sarah. His voice filled the showroom but felt like it was meant only for her. Sarah stood perfectly still, tears running down her face, completely absorbed in the moment. O Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made. Elvis's voice was tender, reverent. He wasn't performing, he was worshiping, and he was sharing that worship with Sarah. When Elvis reached the chorus, then sings my soul, my Savior God to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. His voice soared. The power, the emotion, the spiritual intensity was overwhelming. The entire audience felt it. This wasn't just a song. This was a moment of transcendence. Elvis was showing everyone in that room what music could be when it was stripped of ego and performance and commercial concerns. When it was pure, when it was real. Sarah's face showed pure joy. This was what she'd imagined for 16 years. This was the moment she'd dreamed about every time she listened to Elvis's records in her bedroom, imagining what it would be like to hear him live. But this was better than any dream, because Elvis wasn't just singing. He was singing to her, for her. He'd stopped his concert for 2,000 paying customers to give one blind girl a moment she'd never forget. When the song ended, the audience erupted in applause that lasted 5 straight minutes. People were standing, crying, shouting. It was the kind of applause that comes from deep emotion, not just appreciation. But Elvis wasn't done. The gift he gives her is not what anyone expected. Sarah, I want to give you something. Elvis took off his scarf, the famous scarf he'd wipe his face with during performances. The scarf women in the audience would scream and fight to catch when he threw it into the crowd. He tied it gently around Sarah's neck. This scarf has been with me for every show this month. It's got my sweat on it, which is gross, I know, but it also has my music on it. Every note I've sung, every emotion I've felt, it's soaked into this fabric. I want you to have it. When you touch it, remember tonight. Remember that you matter. Remember that your way of experiencing the world is just as valid as anyone else's. Sarah touched the scarf, feeling the soft fabric against her neck. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. But Elvis wasn't finished. No, Sarah, thank you. Thank you for reminding me why I do this. I don't perform for the lights or the applause or the money. I perform for people like you. People who love music so much they'll travel hundreds of miles and save for years just to hear it live. You remind me what this is all about. You remind me that music is bigger than me. It's bigger than any of us. It's a gift from God, and my job is just to share it. Elvis hugged Sarah gently, carefully, like she was made of glass. Then he guided her back to the stage stairs, where Patricia was waiting, crying so hard she could barely stand. Elvis helped Sarah down the stairs and back to her seat. He made sure she was steady before letting go of her hand. Then he returned to the stage and addressed the audience. That young lady just taught me more about courage and love than I've learned in 20 years of performing. She can't see this stage or these lights or my face, but she experiences my music in a way that's deeper than sight. She feels it. She lives it. Let's give her a round of applause. The audience stood and applauded. Not polite applause, raw, emotional applause that came from the heart. Many were crying. Some were shouting encouragement to Sarah. It was one of those rare moments when 2,000 strangers felt united by something beautiful. Elvis let the applause continue for a long time before finally holding up his hand. All right, let's get back to the music, but I want you all to remember what Sarah taught us tonight. That the best things in life aren't seen with eyes, they're felt with the heart. What happened after the show? After the concert, Patricia and Sarah were escorted backstage. Elvis had requested to see them personally. When they arrived in Elvis's dressing room, he was still in his jumpsuit, sweaty and exhausted from the 2-hour show. His band members were there too, packing up their instruments. Sarah, you still here? Elvis asked. Yes, sir. My mom and I wanted to thank you. You don't need to thank me. I should be thanking you. Elvis turned to Patricia. Ma'am, you raised an incredible daughter. The courage it took for her to come here, to experience music in a world that's mostly visual, that's special. You should be proud. Patricia was crying again. Mr. Presley, you made her dreams come true. She's talked about hearing you sing live since she was a little girl. What you did tonight, stopping the show, describing everything, singing just for her, I'll never forget it. She'll never forget it. You gave us a gift we can never repay." Elvis was quiet for a moment, clearly moved. Then he said, "Sarah, I want to ask you something. You can't see me or the stage or the lights. So what do you see when you hear music? What does music look like to you?" Sarah thought about the question carefully. "Music doesn't look like anything, Mr. Presley. It feels like something. When you sing slow songs, it feels like warmth, like someone hugging me on a cold day. When you sing fast songs, it feels like energy, like electricity running through my body, making me want to move even though I can't dance very well. When you sing gospel, it feels like God is in the room with me, like I'm not alone. I don't need to see you to experience your music. I experience it in a different way, maybe a deeper way, because I'm not distracted by anything visual. It's pure sound, pure emotion, pure connection." Elvis had tears in his eyes. He looked at his band members, who were also visibly moved. "That's the most beautiful thing anyone's ever said to me about my music. You get it, Sarah. You really get it. You understand what I've been trying to do for 20 years. It's not about the costumes or the moves or the image. It's about the connection. It's about touching people's hearts through sound and emotion." Elvis reached into a bag beside his chair. "I want to give you something else. This is a copy of my gospel album, How Great Thou Art. But it's not a regular copy. It's a test pressing, one of only 10 in existence. Before an album goes to stores, they make a few test copies to check the sound quality. This is one of those, and I've signed it for you." He placed the record in Sarah's hands. She ran her fingers over the grooves, feeling the vinyl, feeling the grooves that would produce Elvis's voice when played. "Mr. Presley, I can't accept this. It's too valuable." "Sarah, that record is just vinyl and ink. What's valuable is what you taught me tonight. You taught me that music isn't about what people see. It's about what they feel. You reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place. This record is my way of saying thank you for that reminder." The letter that changed everything. 3 months later, Elvis received a letter at Graceland. It was from Sarah Mitchell, written in Braille, then transcribed by Patricia. The one sentence in her letter redefined Elvis's entire career. The letter said, "Dear Mr. Presley, I wanted to write and tell you what that night in Las Vegas meant to me. I've listened to your music my whole life, but hearing you sing live was different than I ever imagined. It was more powerful, more emotional, more real. When you stopped your concert to describe everything to me, you gave me something I'd never had before, the ability to see a concert, not with my eyes, but with my imagination. Your descriptions were so vivid that I could picture the stage, the lights, the audience. You painted a picture with words, and I could see it in my mind. But more importantly, you treated me like I mattered. You didn't see me as a disabled girl who couldn't fully appreciate your show. You saw me as a fan who deserved the complete experience, just in a different format. You didn't pity me. You respected me. That respect meant more than the music itself. I'm studying to become a music teacher now. I want to help other blind students experience music the way you helped me experience yours. I want to show them that disability doesn't mean inability. It just means experiencing the world differently. And sometimes, experiencing the world differently means experiencing it more deeply. Thank you for stopping your show. Thank you for singing to me. Thank you for making me feel seen, even though I can't see. But most of all, thank you for this. You proved that love isn't about seeing someone with your eyes. It's about seeing someone with your heart. And that night, you saw me with your heart. You saw the past my disability to my humanity. You saw each past what I lack to what I have. That's real love. That's real compassion. I will treasure the scarf and the record for the rest of my life. But more than those physical gifts, I will treasure the memory of a kind man who cared enough to stop everything and make one blind girl feel like she mattered. You changed my life, Mr. Presley. Not because you're famous, not because you're talented, but because you're good. And goodness is rarer than talent. With eternal gratitude, Sarah Mitchell." That last paragraph. You proved that love isn't about seeing someone with your eyes. It's about seeing someone with your heart. Elvis read that letter 3 times in a row. Then he folded it carefully and placed it in his Bible between the pages of 1 Corinthians. 13, the famous passage about love. He kept that letter in his Bible for the rest of his life. Friends who saw it said he'd read it whenever he felt cynical about his career or questioned whether his work mattered. That letter reminded Elvis why he did what he did, Priscilla Presley said years later. When he felt like just a product or a commodity, he'd read Sarah's letter and remember that he was touching real people's lives. That letter was precious to him, sacred, almost. Joe Esposito, Elvis's road manager, said, "After Elvis got that letter from Sarah, something changed in how he approached his shows. He started paying more attention to individual people in the audience. He'd notice if someone looked sad or uncomfortable, and he'd try to connect with them. Sarah taught him to see his audience differently, to see them not as a mass of fans, but as individual humans with their own stories and struggles." The impact that lasted decades. Sarah Mitchell became a music teacher specializing in teaching blind students. She used her experience with Elvis as the foundation of her teaching philosophy. Every student, regardless of disability, deserves to experience music fully. Over her 40-year teaching career, Sarah taught over 500 blind students. She taught them that blindness doesn't limit musical experience, it transforms it. She taught them to listen more deeply, to feel music in their bodies, to connect with sound in ways that sighted people often miss. "Elvis showed me that accommodation isn't charity," Sarah said in a 1985 interview. "It's respect. When he described his stage and his costume and his movements, he wasn't feeling sorry for me. He was respecting my way of experiencing the world. He was meeting me where I was, not expecting me to be someone I'm not. That's what I try to do for my students. Respect their unique ways of experiencing music and help them flourish in their own way." Many of Sarah's students went on to become professional musicians. One became a concert pianist, another became a church organist, several became music therapists who work with disabled children. All of them credited Sarah with teaching them that disability is just a different way of experiencing the world, not a limitation. The 2,000 people in the audience that night never forgot what they witnessed. For many, it was the most meaningful concert experience of their lives, not because of the music, although the music was excellent, but because of the humanity, because they watched a superstar stop everything to honor one person's different way of experiencing his art. "I've seen Elvis perform dozens of times," one audience member said years later. "I've seen him at his peak, in his prime, doing all his famous moves. But that night in 1974 was different. That night, Elvis wasn't just an entertainer. He was a teacher, showing all of us what it means to truly see someone, not with our eyes, but with our hearts. I went home that night and looked at my own disabled son differently. I realized I'd been pitying him when I should have been respecting him. Elvis taught me that in 8 minutes." Sarah's experience with Elvis eventually inspired changes in how concerts accommodate blind and visually impaired fans. Venues started offering audio description services where trained describers quietly narrate the visual elements of performances for blind patrons. Concert promoters began training staff on accessibility. The entertainment industry slowly began to understand that inclusion doesn't require massive infrastructure or expensive technology. Sometimes it just requires awareness and willingness. The Sarah Mitchell moment, as it came to be known in accessibility advocacy circles, became a case study in inclusive entertainment. Elvis's instinctive decision to describe his show wasn't just kind, it was revolutionary. It showed that accessibility can be creative, personal, and meaningful rather than just checking boxes on a compliance form. In 2004, the National Federation of the Blind gave Sarah their annual advocacy award. At the ceremony, Sarah said, "I didn't set out to be an advocate for blind people. I just wanted to hear Elvis sing." But Elvis turned that simple desire into a teaching moment that's still impacting how blind people experience entertainment 40 years later. He didn't study disability rights or attend sensitivity training. He just saw a human being who needed something, and he provided it with grace and creativity. That's the model for true inclusion. Have you ever had someone go out of their way to make sure you were included in something, even when it would have been easier to ignore you? Someone who accommodated your needs not out of pity but out of respect? Share their story in the comments. Sometimes the greatest gift is being truly seen. What this story teaches us. August 17, 1974. A blind girl sat in the front row of an Elvis concert. Elvis could have just sung his songs and ignored her. He had 2,000 other fans to entertain. He had a show to perform. He had a schedule to keep. But Elvis stopped everything. He brought Sarah on stage. He described his world to her. He sang just for her. He gave her an experience she'd remember for the rest of her life. That's what love looks like. Real, practical, unconditional love. Love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice. It's the choice to see someone's need and meet it, even when it's inconvenient. It's the choice to make someone feel included when it would be easier to exclude them. It's the choice to respect someone's different way of experiencing the world rather than dismissing it. Elvis didn't have to stop his concert for Sarah, but he did, because he saw her humanity. He saw her courage. He saw her love for music, and he wanted to honor that. How often do we ignore people because including them would be inconvenient? How often do we exclude people with disabilities because accommodating them would require extra effort? How often do we prioritize efficiency over inclusion? Sarah taught Elvis that night that music isn't about what people see, it's about what they feel. And Elvis taught 2,000 people that inclusion isn't charity, it's respect. We all have opportunities to be someone's Elvis, to stop what we're doing and make sure someone feels included, to describe our world to someone who experiences it differently, to accommodate without patronizing, to include without pitying. The question is, will we take those opportunities? Or will we be too busy with our own shows to notice the Sarahs sitting in our front rows? Because Sarah didn't need Elvis to feel sorry for her. She needed him to respect her enough to include her. And Elvis understood the difference. Sarah's letter said it perfectly. Love isn't about seeing someone with your eyes. It's about seeing someone with your heart. That's the lesson. That's the gift. That's what this story teaches us. Elvis stopped his show for 8 minutes. And in those 8 minutes, he showed 2,000 people what real love looks like. Not romantic love, not superficial kindness, but deep, genuine, respectful love that sees people for who they are, not what they lack. That's the kind of love that changes lives. That's the kind of love the world needs more of. That's the kind of love we should all aspire to give. After hearing this story, how will you think differently about inclusion and accessibility? Will you consider how events and experiences might exclude people with disabilities? Will you advocate for changes that make the world more accessible? Share in the comments what you'll do differently after hearing Sarah's story. Subscribe to Elvis Presley Legacy Stories to discover more moments that prove real compassion means seeing people for who they are, not what they lack. Share this story with someone who works with people with disabilities. Let them know their work of inclusion matters. And the next time you have the chance to include someone who experiences the world differently, remember Sarah and Elvis. Remember that 8 minutes of inclusion can change a life forever. Because Elvis didn't just give Sarah a concert that night. He gave her dignity. He gave her respect. He gave her the message that she mattered just as much as anyone else in that room. Love isn't about seeing someone with your eyes. It's about seeing someone with your heart. That's the lesson Sarah taught Elvis. That's the lesson Elvis taught 2,000 people. And now, it's the lesson we can all carry forward. Every day, we encounter people who experience the world differently than we do. People with disabilities, people from different cultures, people with different perspectives. We can choose to ignore them because including them takes effort, or we can choose to be like Elvis, to stop, to listen, to accommodate, to respect. The choice is ours. But after hearing Sarah's story, we can no longer claim we didn't know better. We know what love looks like. Elvis showed us, Sarah taught us. Now it's our turn to show that same love to the people around us who need to feel seen, valued, and included.